Yo, welcome to another episode of the BJJ GOONS podcast. I am one half of your team here, Tim the Mushmaster Spriggs, and with me, as always, is...
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's no new Nico Ball, and it's a beautiful evening here. Finally warm again.
Yeah, what's the temperature over there?
Oh, I don't even know, but like I'm not freezing. I forgot that you're in Savannah, man. I am so jealous. I am so jealous.
It's about 75 degrees Fahrenheit here.
I'm not getting that. Like, I know it's still beautiful out, but the temperature has definitely dropped.
I don't miss it, bro. I don't think I'm coming back. I have to come back for personal reasons, of course, but I don't really want to come back, bro. I just want to stay down south where it's nice and warm, But all seriousness, no, it's good to hear that you're doing all right up there, Shout out to everyone that asked us questions last week. It was very great of you guys to send your questions. But Nico, we've been chit-chatting here and there. We pretty much talk every day. And I had to remind Nico that there was a very special anniversary yesterday. Nico, what was it?
Yes.
She learned something too. Go ahead,
All right.
Nico.
It is the Malice in the Palace, right?
Yes.
Okay,
absolutely.
At least I got the name right. So it's the anniversary of the Malice of the Palace. So Tim, and then I guess a lot of my friends can relate to this. Tim sends me this YouTube clip of the Malice from the Palace, and he is like, yo, we need to talk to this on the about this on the podcast. Yes. And I'm at my little secret training area with two of my other friends that are obviously men, because I'm definitely the only female that trains up in there. And I look at it, and it's a basketball clip. And then, like, I kind of show it to my friend who's sitting next to me. He's like, oh, yeah. You don't remember that? And I was like, I'm a female. I never knew about it.
Like, really?
No, of course not. So he had to explain it to me. I've had two people since then explain it to me. So all I know about the Malice from the Palace is it seems to be, like, the biggest shit show riot in sports history.
It's up there. It's definitely up there. I think there was a hockey brawl in the 70s or 80s where the players went up in the stands and were fist fighting fans. But the Malice in the Palace was I guess you could say a riot. We were talking about riots. The reason why it came to mind was last week we were talking about that time that Herber started a riot in Brazil, and me and DJ were caught. Well, I was caught in the fray trying to find people and pull them out that were affiliated with us. But DJ ran away. But it brought to mind that the other day was the 16-year anniversary of the Malice in the Palace. And what happened was the Detroit Pistons and the Indiana Pacers were playing a game. Ben Wallace on the Pistons hard fouled Ron Artest.
I saw the foul. I have since saw the foul.
Yes, it was extracurricular. So Ron Artest goes to lay down on the scores table to avoid a confrontation with the rest of the Detroit Pistons. Then a fan throws a full soda from the stands, hits Ron Artest, I think it might have been in the face, and he just goes in the stands and just starts going at the closest fan that he could find. His teammates, like Steven Jackson, going in there trying to grab him. Detroit Pistons fans are fighting Pacers players. It's just a shit show. Like, fans are getting knocked out, like people getting thrown around. And needless to say, basically both teams were suspended for various numbers of games. And Ron Artest even got suspended for the rest of the season, lost a whole lot of money. Which brings me to a couple questions. But the first one, Nico, is if there were to be a riot at a jiu-jitsu tournament, so including you, let's say we're going to go Survivor Series, like 5-on-5 rules. Who are the 4 people that you're taking with you in the fray if there's a riot at a jiu-jitsu?
Well, the one person that I'm not taking is DJ Jackson. Out. I do favela jiu-jitsu, so I'm gonna go Buddha. I'm going Buddha Fabricia. Buddha from the favela. I'm taking these cats from the favela. Nobody knows these kids. They're going to kill you and escape and be sipping a drink with an umbrella in a country with no extradition law before you can even Google them.
Oh,
Get one of
Shantas.
them Gordon Ryan boys and them Proud Boys. Everybody knows who you are because you're on Instagram every day. You ain't never going to find my people. I'm taking Buddha. Buddha is Teddy's cousin. No, everybody's related to Teddy. Buddha might not be, but he works at the academy. I'm taking Fabricio, who is Teddy's cousin. I'm taking Noguera, who is Teddy's other cousin, but the big, loud one. And I'm not sure if he can fight. He's got to be able to fight. He's really big into ankle locking white belts, but he's scary. Those three. Do I say I'm taking Master Lloyd because he's strapped?
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
I'm taking Master
there's been
Lloyd.
a
Why would I
long.
not? He's the
There's been a long
craziest and
debate.
he's the most paranoid. So he's gonna be the one that's like, shorty shit's popping off. I'm getting out of here. So like he's gonna get in where he needs to get in. He's gonna get out where he needs to get out. Tactically, amazing man to have in a melee. And that leaves one more spot on my team. Dang, who am I going for? It's like I wouldn't give it to Muhammad, but I don't trust Muhammad. I think Muhammad would leave me for a fine girl. I would love like Rico's energy. Again, I don't think he could focus it in the right place.
You need his energy in someone else's body because he's small.
Like I think like maybe I'd take just like a May because like even if I don't think his energy could be in the right place, he's kind of like a berserker. If you just like put him off in the right spot, he's just gonna do the damage you need. May. I'm going with May.
Wow, that's a pretty solid crew. I mean,
straight favela. I had to keep it straight.
Straight favela. Straight favela.
Not one of these people pays for jujitsu, y'all.
None of them pay.
None of them pay.
They're
them
made
academies.
men. They don't gotta
straight
pay.
projects. Straight projects.
That's
but
what's
yeah,
up,
that's
though.
it. Yeah, straight FT. I'm going with the FT hit squad with May from May. Yeah. What about you? That was a great question.
Who are the 5 people that I bring with me in a brawl? So you asked me a good question. They have to be jiu-jitsu people, correct? They can be? Okay.
I mean,
so
you could
jiu-jitsu people
we'll
I
take
know.
like jujitsu, like the random jujitsu people that are always around TLI, so they're like jujitsu people but don't do jujitsu people. Maybe like a Greg.
Okay.
Like, does Greg
okay.
He does do. He's
I would
done
not have
jujitsu
Greg
longer
Howe,
than
no.
me, but like, yeah, no.
I love Greg, but he's on the DJ thing where like he'll help you, but like we can't guarantee like how quickly he'll help you. Like, and he might be like the getaway driver. Like, I'm going to the car.
Yeah,
I'm getting the car. I'm turning on the engine. Y'all can fight. I'm gonna turn the car on.
Yo, he's like, my bad. I had to do my 200 burpees before I could.
Yeah, right. He's got flex in the mirror. I'm like, where the hell were you? Like, man, I was in the mirror flexing, Mr. Spriggs.
But you down there making them MMA and them WWE connections. So let's keep this strictly BJJ. Let's keep it fair.
Straight jiu-jitsu people. Okay. All right. So if we're going jiu-jitsu people, all right. I would go with Master Lloyd, of course, because Master Lloyd knows all the kill moves. Like, he knows all the tricky old school kung fu kill moves. He knows all that stuff. Definitely. And there's been an ongoing argument in the gym whether him or Bruce Wayne would win in a street fight, or did they say Batman? Either way, like if Master Lloyd had the gadgets, he'd be like Batman. So I'm definitely taking him. Number 2, I would have to go with Musin because he's ready for the apocalypse and he has like 60 professional fights. So like we need somebody that knows how to throw them hands but can choke people out. So that's 2. I'm taking Angelo, the truck Claiborne, just because because if Angelo,
silent killer.
So I got, besides myself, so I have only one more person. Definitely Angelo. And if you piss Angelo off, he becomes the Hulk and is just ready to kill everything that moves. So yeah. And the last would be, I would pick Muhammad because he's a nice guy. He's very friendly. Everyone likes Muhammad. And like he could ease the tension in a room right before I sucker punch somebody and get the party started. I'm just kidding. But he could definitely calm the tensions while we escape. He'd be like the peacemaker. But also if you pissed him off, he'd be ready to fight. Like he's giant. So I need a human shield.
Muhammad grew up in the favela. He's got to have some stories. We got to ask him because I was like, I can't.
Street stories, right?
I can't picture him brawling But then it's like, he's Muhammad. Like, where am I getting this image of him as a playboy? Because he's not. So it's like,
He's not. Isn't playboy a derogatory term in
I mean, it's the
Portuguese
term
in
I would use
Brazil?
to describe those like low cut V-neck shirts he wears sometimes, or
Oh,
anybody wears, like,
no, yeah.
But yeah, no. That's a great question. We're going
That's
to have to ask our guest this week that question as well.
so. Who is our guest? Would you like to?
Yeah, our guest this week, and we are waiting for him now because we definitely forgot about the time difference. I actually stole this guest from my friends. He has been in Philly for the past couple of weeks for Fight to Win, and they kind of tried to invite him down to Washington. It didn't work out with Washington. Did I just say Washington? They tried to invite him to DC. That didn't work out with his schedule. But today we're going to have Dom Hoskins. Dom Hoskins is the owner of Dominat10n Martial Arts. Again, emphasis on the martial arts and not the MMA, which has become so popular. That's located in Richmond, California. He is the son of the civil rights activist, and his roots go all the way back to the Bloods. And I'm not talking about that typical token Black person that grew up in a bad neighborhood that we always hear about. I'm talking about his parents were civil rights activists, and they did peace negotiations with people like Tookie himself. They were working with leaders on the streets, which is amazing. I personally am highly interested in knowing more about the social work that he does. He is part of a nonprofit organization that works in schools in Oakland. It is super hard to get martial arts into school programs, so I would love to know more about that. I also want to know how my friends found out about that, because it's really hard to see that on social media. So I would really like to see that kind of stuff put out more. And he's got about like 21 Fight to Win cards under his belt. He's definitely a veteran in the sport. So I'm looking forward to talking to him whenever he gets onto the Zoom.
I'm looking forward to hearing a lot about that. It's very interesting how, since this whole pandemic happened, we learned so much about the community work that so many members of the jiu-jitsu community do. I think that it's been amazing to see. I think that's a major part of being a martial artist, is giving back to the community, not just teaching people how to fight, but bringing them up as far as fully fledged human beings, like Pavlov's hierarchy of needs. For all those who don't know what that is, look it up and you'll see that martial artists and martial arts instructors provide a lot of that for the community. So I look forward to hearing a lot from Dom. I don't know much about him besides what I hear from other people. So I'm looking forward to it. Everyone watching this should look forward to it. This is going to be an amazing episode. So stay tuned. Next up, Dom Hoskins. All right, guys, we're back. Our guest today is Dom Hoskins. Welcome to the show, Dom.
Much appreciated. Thank you guys for having me on.
Okay,
Been wanting this one for a minute.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. And before we get started, let's get to the real serious conversation here. The real serious question of the day.
Wait, well, I guess we should give him the context, because he probably understands the context of the question and the anniversary.
So let's go back to what the anniversary. So yesterday was the anniversary, the 16-year anniversary of the Malice in the Palace. Do you remember that?
Oh, bro, how could I forget?
Being a girl, I'm the only one that didn't know about it.
Oh my God, you want to talk about Fight to Win? Oh man.
Oh,
that was wild.
It was NBA Street, but like NBA Street Fighter, like
that was Street NBA.
Street NBA, yes. Like clear the court. All they needed was homeboy from above the rim with the gun, just going pop, 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 and then
oh my God, it would have been perfect.
Yes, it would have been it. It would have been it. But yeah, so we already talked about it earlier in the episode. We gave the background. So my question for you is, Dom, we're gonna do like Survivor Series rules, where it's like you can only pick 5 guys, you included, so you're picking 4. What 4 other guys would you bring with you to a melee if it just so happened to be at a Fight to Win, or even like a jiu-jitsu tournament like ADCC? Who are the 4 guys that you're bringing with you? Jiu-jitsu guys that you know.
4 jiu-jitsu guys. I'm going to go with, I bring you. You're a goon. I would definitely bring you.
Train wreck, yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody that is gonna straight up run through somebody's face and shake the shit out of them if necessary. I would bring Vitor Oliveira.
Ooh.
He's another goon. You know, you see him on the scene just trying to run through people. Herbert Santos, he's always ready to get down. And then the fourth one.
See, Urbith is part of the reason that we have this question, because he was trying to start the second melee.
Oh, it was a melee.
Urbith, you're going to be with Urbith, and he's going to need you in that 5. Just know you're part of his 5. You're not.
Oh, no, facts. He's definitely the melee. Like, he is the Ron. He's the Ron Artest, you know?
All
like,
right.
loyal as hell, but he's ready to get down when necessary. So, let me see. I got Urbith, I got Timmy, I got Vitor, and who else would I not personally want to just run up on?
Maybe take like a Lachlan Giles, because nobody would suspect him. He could be like your spy.
Actually,
he pulls
for real,
guard.
like, he's a sleeper.
He pulls guard, bro.
Who's
like, that's the
gonna
only
expect
problem.
him next to Urbith, like this little dude? Like, what?
You know, and in the grand scheme of things, I'm like, somebody's got to give, you know, service with a smile to the cops. So I'm like, we can go with Lachlan. You know what I'm saying? We'll go with him. That's perfect.
Sorry, officer. I didn't know we couldn't do that.
Every crew needs that one guy to talk to the cops. The one dude. It's like, guys,
take it easy. You're on 3rd Street. Like, you know, he's that dude for us. So shout out to Lachlan.
That's what's up. That's a good answer. Those are very good answers. I'm honored to be on your list. But let's go back a little bit. You know, you do a lot of activism, but what was your first martial arts experience? What got you into martial arts? What set it off?
Oh, man. I had wanted to be in martial arts since I was a little kid. And unfortunately didn't have the opportunity, you know, just wasn't in the finances for the family. But we had a neighbor that was part of a Kenpo program. So got into that and learned the first couple katas, got a stripe on my belt. And then that was pretty much it. But from there, it was just the little taste of getting it, where it was just keep on working. Oh, you got this move wrong. Keep on working at it till you get it right. And then, you know, you've literally earned your stripes. So I always loved that aspect. I've always been a worker bee. I get it from my parents, get it from all my extended family. So even though as I got older, I ended up doing football and track in high school, it was always in the back of my mind to do a martial art. And then my buddy, one of my close homies, he had gotten bullied in high school. So after high school, his uncle was a blue belt, training him out of his garage to just teach him how to defend himself. So he's nagging me, hey, come through, pull up. I need a partner for this stuff. I can't do it by myself. And, you know, we're talking 2005. So not everybody's as educated on the fight game and on jiu-jitsu and all this stuff at the time. So I'm just like, what is jiu-jitsu? I've heard of it. It sounds cool. I don't know what it is. And so then he's just like, here, I'll show you a move. So you wrap your legs around this dude. And I'm like, whoa, no. I'm cool. You know, little did I know it would end up being my favorite place to be. But he nagged me. And then finally I watched a couple of MMA fights on old UFC fights. And then I see somebody get up kicked. And then the guy falls into his guard and then he guillotines him and ends the fight. And I'm like, oh, snap. He's like, that's what we do. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check this out. And, you know, he had been nagging me for a year. So I go ahead and check it out. And I turn in my football pads the next day.
Word? You turned in your football pads.
That was it. I was like, this is what I'm doing. I get everything I put into it. You know, I don't have to deal with the politics of if, you know, whoever the booster is on the team, you know, their kid gets to play over me even if I'm better than them. Or if somebody else messes up their route or messes up their assignment, it ruins it for everybody. Nobody holds my hand on the mat. So if I win, I won. If I lost, and I can deal with that, you know? So that was pretty much it for me. I was like, oh, I can get what I put into this, you know? And that was, 14 and a half years ago now. So.
That's incredible, man. So did you always want to compete? Like that was your thing. What was your goal starting out?
Compete, you know, I'm 18 at the time, 17, 18. I'm just, you know, punching the air like most dudes are, you know? So I'm like, I want to fight. I want to get into MMA, beat people up, do all this stuff. And then I actually did it. I was getting into MMA and doing all right, but I liked the mental aspect of jiu-jitsu more, you know? I didn't like the idea that if I was better than my opponent, if he just swings, you know, and that could be anywhere, even on the street, if somebody just swings on me, and with all my training, if I just get hit in the right spot, he could knock me out or render me useless, basically, subdue me. And I didn't like that. I like the more thoughtful aspect. You can tell anybody to swing, and if they hit, you know, a broken clock is still right twice a day. But if you tell somebody like, hey, handle this guy on the ground, or subdue this man, or choke this person, render them unconscious, we have a special skill. It's almost a superpower, you know, to be able to do these things. And so I liked the thinking aspect of it, the mental aspect of it a lot more.
There is no such thing as a lucky rear naked choke. You know what I mean?
No, for real. For real. You
plenty
have
of lucky punches.
For everything.
So how old were you when you say that you got started into this?
I was 18.
So at like 18, you were really able to appreciate like that mental aspect of it. Like, I mean, that's a very self-aware way to rationalize quitting a high school sport at such an age and going against the grain.
Yeah, it was, it's all credit to my family, you know, like we're real pragmatic, because my sister and I are pragmatic because my parents were. They're all about, you know, keeping everything on an even keel. You have high lows, you know, because anytime you fail, you tap, you lose or whatever, you know, it'll get better. It's not going to be like that forever. Every time you win, it's not going to be like that forever. There's no such thing as the undefeated fighter. And even if their main record is undefeated, it's because they've lost in the gym God knows how many times. So they've kept it realistic for us. And so, you know, it made it easier for me to transition into something like this.
That's what's up.
So ever since then, oh, go ahead, Nico.
No, go ahead.
Ever since then, has jiu-jitsu been your main thing? Has it been your everything? Have you got another side gig, or are you just a teacher / competitor?
Well, it's crazy because I guess nowadays between all the fight to wins and the other events and, you know, stuff like you and I have seen each other on podiums and all that kind of stuff. I think people look at me as a competitor, but I still look at myself as like a hobbyist that competes, because I had a full-time job my whole career. Always working. For a bunch of it, I was going to college and working and training, and still doing my thing on the competitive circuit. And so up until I'd probably say 2015, about 5-6 years ago, it was just odd jobs, just whatever keeps the bills paid while I'm doing jiu-jitsu. And then it started to turn into, you know, Rodrigo Maderos, my sensei, he sent me to Hong Kong to run one of his affiliate programs out there. And then that jumped off into running classes at his school when I got back, bouncing around doing workshops and seminars, and then eventually settled back in my roots in the Bay Area, and then running my own program and getting that off the ground. So now it's all jiu-jitsu, even my full-time job. So
that's wild. What was it like going from the Bay Area all the way over to Hong Kong?
Oh man, well, it was Bay Area down to San Diego, so that was an adjustment. You know, getting to live the little slow, laid-back beach life, you know, and then going to Hong Kong. it was a test because it's a beautiful place with beautiful people. I loved every bit about my experience, but not everybody speaks English. So as an instructor, it's a true test of how well you can teach your craft. You know, like we can't all speak the same language, but we do speak the same language when it comes to jiu-jitsu. Everybody speaks that art. And so how I think it was probably the most pivotal role I've had in helping my teaching. But it was cool to, I'm in traveling for the food. So like having all the food out there made me like an Asian food snob once I got back. Seeing all the places I could go, having access to, you know, bounce over to different countries and compete. And just the views, the scenery, whether it's jungles, mountains, beach, city, everything. Definitely got, I guess, Rodrigo's money's worth out of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely love traveling, and I think it's something that I hope to inspire with the organizations that I work with. And I know our audience hopefully cares enough about me to know where I work. But one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on was because I know you work with some nonprofit organizations. But to give some background, I was doing some research on you, and it says like you were very big into activism and kind of grew up in that. Could you speak a little bit about your parents and how they raised you to be political active? Because I saw one thing that says that you would go out and you would speak at rallies and stuff. And, you know, one thing that I was wondering is like, how old were you when you were doing this kind of stuff? And, you know, like, what's it like? Like, what, like, do you have like, cause you always see on TV shows, you're like, oh, these are the points that you're supposed to go up and say, and da, 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 da. And it's interesting to just hear it from somebody, like somebody on the mats.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I know Tim can definitely express the same sentiment that the climate of jiu-jitsu has just kind of been rocked by all the, you know, the focus on social injustice and everything going on, or the, you know, lack of injustice that some people see, you know. But yeah, it's interesting just because I've lived this stuff. My aunt, she was a lead advocate for Stanley Tookie Williams, rest in peace, who was like an early pioneer for like the Crips gang. And so she was working on reformation projects, on you know, repealment of the death penalty, restorative justice, criminal justice reform in general, killing the prison system as we know it. She was pivotal in a lot of that, and my mom piggybacked off of that too. And she's been heavily delved into civil rights on the West Coast. My dad, he was born in Montgomery, Alabama in 1951. So anybody that knows anything about the U.S. knows that that was a very sticky place, probably the stickiest place to be at that time. And so he dropped out of school in like middle school to join the civil rights movement. And so he marched everywhere, knew Martin Luther King, John Lewis, all these pivotal people. And he participated in the sit-ins. He was attacked by the dogs, hosed down. He walked Selma over the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So any of our brothers and sisters that got to vote need to thank him. You know, he got stationed in Grenada, Mississippi, and was doing station work out there. Meanwhile, you know, my mom, she's an intellectual. Like all of her family, teachers, principals, etc., at times where didn't see a lot of people that looked like us that were teachers, principals, etc. So they were pioneers in their own right. And so she made sure that as I grew up, she gave me the compare and contrast between what history I'm going to be taught and what history actually is. And so I just lived and breathed it. Like when I was 8, I think I was in 3rd grade, we had like a district wide, and I lived in a small town. My mom moved me out of South Central LA so that we didn't have to deal with all the stuff that was going on in the early 90s there. So I'm living in this suburb, little mountain community, and they have a essay contest district-wide for all the high schools, everybody, where they ask, what does liberty and justice for all mean to you? And I wrote an essay, and I won this whole thing over the high schoolers, adults, everybody. And then later on, I come to learn that they started making social justice projects based off of my essay. So this is when I was 8. And then as I got older, you know, we'd help with my aunt's programs. And then I started getting involved in doing my own thing, you know. And so as of late, people, like, I've been a lot more vocal. And people are like, how come we haven't heard you post all the time about this stuff before? And so I've had to revert back and show them, like, yeah, I was posting about it, you just weren't listening. Or I was too busy actually doing the work to be speaking out on it, you know? But I eat, sleep, live, and breathe this stuff. So it comes from everybody in my family. And then now I'm just on a mission to educate, you know, and pass it on. That's the only way that we're going to, you know, make any real changes.
That's amazing. Do you, like, I was going to ask, like, what role do you think jiu-jitsu has in activism? But, like, also thinking on, like, things like Colin Kaepernick, and when we see, like, one small move in the sports world to stand up and, like, what ensued after that, like, do you think sports have a role in politics?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, you got to think from a macro standpoint that professional sports, in particular the big ones like the, you know, NBA, baseball, football, hockey, they're kind of versions of modern day slavery to a point. Because if you think about it, who were the best slaves? They were the yes-us, the no-sus. They were the people that were sucking up to the owners. And then they'd end up getting treated better. They were the house Negroes, you know? So then you have hordes and hordes of people that are just in the field. Just shut up and do your job. And so they weren't either here nor there. No special treatment, but they're not, you know, being hindered. They're serving their quote unquote purpose. And then you have, who are the bad slaves? The ones that run away, the ones that are singing hymns to brighten everybody's spirits, the ones helping people escape. Those are the bad ones, you know, and they get treated the worst, the quote unquote uppity Negroes. So then you fast forward to modern day sports, and what do we have? We've got players that speak up, those uppity Negroes, the LeBrons, where they tell them stick to sports. Tim has been told to stay on the mat and do what you do. I've been told to stay on the mat and do what I do. You know, you have this, whether in whatever regard, whatever venue, however big the sport, they still don't want to hear us speak. But then you have other people that are just droning on, regardless of what their beliefs are, and they're just doing their sport. They don't get touched, you know? But then if anybody's sucking up on the other end and they're like, well, this social injustice thing isn't really what people are, you know, making it out to be, or oppression doesn't exist, or, you know, they're on the far right Trumpster hype, you know, nobody messes with those black folks. Those become, or, you know, any marginalized group of people, they're not messing with them. So, but I think it's our responsibility to actually speak up. If you have a platform, you know, each one teach one. If you have a platform, it's your responsibility to speak up. Like, it's not our responsibility, you know, it's not mine or Tim's responsibility to tell every white dude in jiu-jitsu, hey, this is what racism is, and this is, you know, it's not our job to teach anybody anything. However, it is our responsibility to educate. We don't need to tell people what it is, but we do need to be able to make people aware and alert, because if we don't, who will? If we're not speaking up, who will? You know, like you need a voice. Like if there's a bunch of people starving and there's a bunch of people eating, we need those people that are eating to be able to help feed the starving. If the starving can feed themselves, they wouldn't be hungry, you know, and not everybody's willing to speak up. So, you know, that's why I appreciate you, Tim, in particular, you know what I'm saying? Just on the mat, getting down, but at the same time, using your voice, you know, the same way I have been, you know, it's necessary. So Colin doing what he did, loved it. I'm like, honestly, in a country that's predicated on liberty and justice for all and freedom and exercising your rights, the most patriotic thing we could do is advocate for this stuff, you know? And I think people get that lost because they want to try to pigeonhole it and not actually address the real issues.
Very true.
Facts.
You know, I think we had one of those old fight to wins. It might have been like my 5th or 6th one, like a few years back, right when that Nike ad came out for Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. I came out to This Is America from Childish Gambino. That was my walkout song. And I had the ad as my background. And I walk out onto the catwalk and I knelt. And we were in Reno. Kaepernick went to school in Reno. Half that stadium walked out. This was the co-main event of the whole show. Sound
like some snowflakes to me. They just walked out in the co-main event.
If they look like one, smell like one, and they walk out like one, I would say so. And so yeah, half the stadium walked out, and you know, I was like, cool. We don't want them anyway. And I got a quick side shout out to Seth Daniels because he's a brash white dude. And just because he's a brash white dude, people assume that he's racist. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that.
No, he's just crazy. He says all the shit I wish I could, but I work for a nonprofit. So
you know what I'm saying? You gotta.
What did he do? Tell me.
You gotta reel it in sometimes. And so I'm his biggest cheerleader. But the thing is, he's mine too. You know what I'm saying? Like Tim's got a great relationship with him. I got a great relationship with him. DJ, all these guys, the list goes on. And it's funny because you had like some of these groups when all this stuff's popping off, like, Dom, why aren't you going in on Seth? And I was like, why would I go in on Seth? Seth's paid more brown folks than anybody in jiu-jitsu history combined. He's getting black folks to ref. Shout out JB3, Jordan Burton. He's getting all of us on fights. He's doing everything he can to keep us with a steady paycheck. Everybody in the game, period. He doesn't care what color you are. He hates bad people. He doesn't hate people. You know?
If Seth and Missy don't like you, then you're wrong. You
know
what I'm saying?
I judge them.
Yes. Like you did something. You did something to piss them off. Cross the line.
Exactly. Somewhere. I'm like, you are doing the most. Like, you need to check yourself because, if they don't like you, I'm judging you. I'm not judging them, you know? And so that's one of those things. Like, I love the way he does it. I mean, we're talking about it now. I've got probably second most appearances by somebody that wasn't employed by them.
Right?
Wow.
As a black man.
That's impressive.
I'm like, if he was hating on us, he would not have me out there getting down. He would not have you out there getting down, Tim. I don't care how good we are.
No.
Because we don't get treated as well by certain other organizations that I don't feel like naming.
Absolutely not. We don't get the opportunity. They wouldn't even let us sniff a belt, let alone win the shit. Like
for real, and carry it and boost it proudly and all that. So huge shout out to that crew because they get it. You know, and they let us use that platform. You know, like I said, he was the one, little insider info. Seth was the one that had me come out to that song. I was always coming out to Nipsey Hussle. I've been coming out to Nipsey basically since I started. I was born in LA. I'm a Cali boy. So Nipsey been my dude. And he was like, well, if you're going to make the statement, let's make the statement. He was the one doing that. So all those snowflakes that got mad, you're mad at Seth, not at me.
He's trying to be low key. He's the one that's like, nah, fuck that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
We're gonna do
smart
it.
too because he had all of their money in pockets.
Exactly.
He's
Exactly.
like, all right, I got your money. Now get the fuck out.
Exactly. No realtor. Peace. See you when I see
Peace.
you. You know. And I got sub of the night that day, so that was even better. You know what I'm saying? Got it. So yeah, man. Like that's my thing. I'm just like, if we have the platform, what little platform we have compared to NBA, whatever, use it. Use it. Spread the word. It's necessary. And anybody saying that we're disparaging the country has a totally incorrect view of what this country is supposed to represent.
That is very true. That's very true.
100.
I definitely want to try to correct that vision. So as I know, like the last time you were doing a podcast, they were worried about like, oh, the jujitsu. Tim might have some jujitsu. My questions are not jujitsu related as much.
I'm all for all of it. You know?
I know that you definitely do not believe that the key to police reformation is giving them free jujitsu classes at Renzo Gracie.
Definitely not.
I wanted to know because I know a lot of my friends. I do not have the friends that are asking me about the racists in their gym because I was not friends with them before. But I do have a lot of people that are asking me things like, when we say defund police, like that is not a hashtag. We want actual change. So like, could you speak on like, what does this change look like?
So there's a couple different ways that it manifests itself. First things first, you shouldn't be patrolling a place that you're not from or not living in. You don't know the landscape, you know, like we've got cops all over, and specifically in the Bay, that are coming from like these super rich towns, and they're like, I want to be a cop in Oakland. I want to be a cop in Oakland, East Oakland. I'm like, what do you know about East Oakland? Why would you want to go to a place? Everybody fears the unknown. So if you're in a place where you don't know the people, so you don't know how to communicate, you don't know the landscape, so you don't know where things are, you're not from there. And not to mention, there's a lack of accountability, because if you screw somebody over in a town that you live in, it's going to come back to you. So that's the first thing that needs to happen is you need to redistrict all these people, you know, and that doesn't take any money. It actually costs less money, defund, to have these people shipped to all these different areas, you know, like you don't need that. So that's the first thing. So some sort of magnet program.
And off that one, I want to give my condolences to Walter Wallace that was recently shot by the police, a man with mental health issues, a man who had the police called to his house several times that day, a man that should have had received services to de-escalate the situation had somebody in the community reached out instead of law enforcers that shot him over 13 times.
Absolutely, because it's not their job to execute anybody. It is not their job. And I also find it funny that they're definitely that, you know, in this whole spirit of escalation and de-escalation, how come you have handcuffs, you have a baton, you have a taser, you have mace, but the gun gets pulled first every single time? Why is this always the thing? Well, maybe not every single time, but every single time with people of a certain persuasion. I find that interesting. But that actually segues into the next piece. You know, you need social workers or mental health specialists on hand. They don't have to be at every scene of every crime, but if it's a nonviolent crime, or even if it's a violent crime involving somebody in mental health distress, somebody needs to be present to know how to talk to them. That falls right into that category of communication. You know, it's weird that there's such a short training process within law enforcement. You don't even get to know people. You know, I see, like, Tim and I, years ago, had seen each other on the circuit. I don't know Tim from Adam at the time. You know what I'm saying? But, and whether we're on the same podiums or just see each other in passing, I don't know anything about him. So how are you supposed to know anything, you know, and since obviously like we're super cool and all that, but how do you judge people's moral stability and character over time when it's hordes of people at the same time just being shipped through the system like a factory? You either pass, fail certain things, and then you're out. You can't really gauge, you know, any hate, any implicit bias. You can't gauge that on people. And so psyche valves are necessary. Best way I've thought to remedy it, you know, pump money into, you know, local prominent martial arts programs in these areas. That kind of blurs into the jiu-jitsu, because typically that's what's necessary. Like all this, seeing these videos of people getting kneed and elbowed and punched. I'm like, you're not an MMA fighter. You're law enforcement. So enforce law. Like, you don't need to be doing all that. You need to know how to hold somebody, subdue them, get them in cuffs. Now you don't have to worry about anything. And so my idea has been to pump money into these. That money's paying for their tuitions to go to the classes at least twice a week. And then it's on the instructors to give psyche vows, whether it's quarterly, monthly, whatever time seems appropriate, every 8 weeks. And these psyche vows, what are you gauging? And I kind of talked about this on Jamie's podcast, where I was like, okay, well, you have this dude, he comes in, you know, Tim, I know you can attest, the second you grip somebody, you know if they're bringing smoke or not, you know? So I'm like, okay, this dude, he's a spaz. I pass his guard and I get into side control and he's freaking out like a fish out of water. I'm like, okay, or he gets tapped to a lower belt and then all of a sudden he wants to freak out and go super, super hard. And I'm like, well, if this is what you do in a controlled environment, what are you going to do in an uncontrolled environment with a gun? And so these psyche vows like give a gauge to the departments to let them know, hey, this dude's not ready yet mentally. You know, regardless of what his physical prowess or acumen can be, you know, don't just entrust him and entitle him to having a weapon just because he did the paperwork and passed the physical. And then on the other end, you got guys that, hey, this dude's grappling's not that great. You know what I'm saying? Like, he needs some work on the ground. He needs some work on how to subdue people or how to, you know, impose his will or use self-defense. Mm-hmm. However, he's helpful. All he's doing is asking questions. All he's doing is everything he can to be a better person. Because at the end of the day, jiu-jitsu is just going to make you better at whatever you're doing. You know, so if you're a bad person, it's going to make you worse because now you got another weapon. If you're a good person, it's going to make you better at doing your job properly. So then you impart that to the department like, hey, this dude's nothing but helpful. He's got his mind right. We'll get him the grappling. That's the easy part, is teaching the skills. We'll get him that part. He just needs to keep working. Cool. I trust this guy. And now you have a better gauge on people. So between, and not to mention all this money going into these martial arts programs, is also pumping money into local economies. You know, it keeps small business running. It supports small business. And you have your civilians working every day alongside the people that are patrolling. So now you have a better relationship between the general public and law enforcement. So between pumping money into martial arts programs, you know, social workers and mental health specialists to help with nonviolent crime. Shout out to Miles Hall, who was gunned down in Walnut Creek, the area where I've got my school. He went to my old high school, as a matter of fact. He, you know, he was another one. His family had spoken directly to law enforcement about, hey, we know how to handle our kid. This is the protocol. And they had it laid out. And they had a new cop on the beat who decided he was going to be a hero, and Miles is gone from us. He's taken from us now. You know, if you have somebody that is in the know and people that follow the protocols, that doesn't happen, and we still have him here. So having somebody on hand to handle those situations properly, if it gets escalated to a violent situation, you have your cop on hand to handle that when necessary. But this literally should be an escalation or a de-escalation. You just don't jump off the cliff or jump up the cliff, you know? So between those and having people patrol where they live, where they're from, you're going to change the game.
Awesome.
Amazing stuff.
It's really important to realize that when we talk about like defund police, again, it's something that has to happen on a local level. It's something that we all have to do in our communities. A lot of times people are like, they always expect the president or their local government or somebody else to fix the problem for them. And that's not how it is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They, you know, one of the things I hear all the time is like, well, what did Obama do for Black people while he was in office? And it's the most annoying question because A, he didn't have control of Congress while he was, like, his party didn't have control of Congress when he was elected initially. And when he was elected initially, the day after he was elected, they said that they would block anything that he decided that he would try to enact. The second piece of this is, as president, it's his job to be commander-in-chief. It is not his job as a Black person to solve racism. That is not his job. It's not Tim's job to solve it in jiu-jitsu. It's not my job to solve it in jiu-jitsu. It's not LeBron's job to solve it in basketball. All we can do is just use the platforms we have to teach people and to further help the change. But it's not our jobs to do it ourselves, you know? So just had to throw that out there because it's one of those things that gets me.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's just keep going down the line. I want to know how you got involved with the Youth Jiu Jitsu Collective, which I don't think we mentioned at this point, but I did explain a little bit about it in the intro. So a lot of people, because I work with Fernando Terede's social project, which is in Rio, but because getting an NGO is so hard in Rio, like I came back and I incorporated in the US and I funnel money down there. And a lot of people ask me about replicating social work in the US, and it's a little bit difficult, and I'm a teacher as well, so I know it's hard to get into schools. So could you explain to us a little bit about what the program is?
Yeah, first off, Nico, to your point, yeah, there's a lot of red tape to try to make a breakthrough, a lot of liability. We're in a very Sioux-friendly country. So you have to make sure everything's on point. Shout out to David Thompson. He's our head honcho all over the place, doing excellent work, fighting all the good fights, getting turned down by everybody, getting accepted by the choice few, and then we're just keeping it going. But Youth Jiu Jitsu Collective was originally started about 8 years ago by Josh Rosenthal, like the UFC referee.
He's got an interesting story.
Yeah, understatement. And basically through his trials and tribulations, he basically found his calling and was like, this is what I need to be doing, is watering the garden. And so Youth Jiu Jitsu Collective is geared towards specifically inner city kids, but at-risk youth, whether they're kids in the foster system, kids from welfare homes, incarcerated kids, and it's teaching jiu-jitsu and mindfulness to these kids to basically try to kill this school to prison pipeline of, apathetic staff, apathetic teachers, lack of resources, which keep kids checked out. And then once the kids are checked out, it starts leading to, okay, well, what else am I going to do? Because I got to find a way to make money. I have to find a way to support my family if we're already in a poor area or whatnot. And, the trickle down effect, we know where all that goes. And so we go into these schools, and I've been kind of the lead training instructor. So have my sites where I teach, and then these other sites, kind of oversee the other teachers to make sure that they're spreading the right message, they're getting through to the kids, et cetera, et cetera. So I got involved because I had been helping kids for a long time anyway, while I was in San Diego. And then after I got back from Hong Kong, I moved back to the Bay Area to start my program, and saw that they were hiring on like a Craigslist ad. And I go and talk to David, and we hit it off, and I start teaching, and David sits in on a couple of my classes, and it was almost like a scared straight kind of thing, where he was like, yeah, like, I'm going to have you in this school. It's a middle school, so it's rough. And I'm like, I'm not afraid of kids, because I talk to them like they're little adults anyway. And he was like, kind of laughing, like, yeah, you say that, everybody says that until they're actually in front of the kids. And these kids are, you know, going ham, and I start barking at them, and I'm letting them know, like, this stuff's real life. I'm like, jiu-jitsu, like, this is going to be a controlled environment, but you're at your own mercy, just like in life. You know, I'm like, don't let your circumstances define you. Know that you're going to fail, but fail forward. You know, learn from whatever you're going to, you know, learn from every tap and do better. Work to do better every single time. You know, I'm like, what happens if I choke you? You tap, right? That's cool if I let go. But if I don't let go, you die. And so if you start thinking about it from this perspective, all of a sudden, and mind you, at this point, the class is dead silent, bright-eyed, you know, like, who is this dude? And I look over at David, and he's looking over at me like, who are you, bro? And so I was like, yeah, this stuff is real life. I've been where you've been, you know, I've dealt with what you've dealt with, and, you know, in all kinds of different mediums, but you can be better. Don't let your circumstances or the environment around you define what you're going to do, you know? And so then it just took off from there. So we get gi donations, and throw these kids in gis. We, you know, negotiate, market with these schools. And in a number of these schools, basically they'll have like a leftover portable, and they'll let us just lay out mats in there. And they've incorporated it into PE as an elective, which it should be everywhere, but they incorporated into PE as part of their curriculum. Like, hey, you're either doing kickball, you're running, jogging, doing track, or you're doing jiu-jitsu. Which one? And then people are doing jiu-jitsu. At first we had 4 kids in a class. Then it turned into 9, 13, 25. Then all of a sudden it was people beating the door down like, hey, we're just going to have to split up, you know, this 9-week period into 3 weeks of jiu-jitsu for you guys, 3 weeks into jiu-jitsu for y'all, you know, and we had to split it up because we just had so many people that were wanting to do it. And the results were showing, which was the cool part. Truancy levels going down, grades going up. I was holding these kids accountable. I'm like, show me your grades or you can't roll. You know, if you have good grades, great, make them better. If you have bad grades, great, make them better. If you have bad grades, why? Let me know what's going on, you know? And so we're not just teaching them the jiu-jitsu, but we're teaching them the mindfulness aspect as well. You know, what are you feeling? How are you feeling it? What's making you feel this way? And then I started adding the gratitude factor, and I was like, name something every single day that you're grateful for. And these things were showing. I was getting calls, been getting calls, you know, COVID's kind of put everything on hold, but been getting calls where, you know, parents are telling me, thank you so much. My kid's chilling. He's more obedient. He's helping around with chores. You must have run him into the ground because he's going to sleep on time, you know? So it's just we're just trying to make better people. We're not empowering them because they already have the power. We're just making them aware of it.
That's awesome.
It's beautiful, man. Really, really good stuff.
So, like, you referenced this mindfulness program, and from an educator's perspective, I can know that, you know, to propose a jujitsu program in a school district, you need some kind of educational aspect, something like a 9-week mindfulness program where kids do such and such. Like, that's the
Exactly.
thing that probably got you into school. It's not jujitsu. Like,
100%.
that's
100%.
got the grant money. And as somebody that works in favela jujitsu and knows that, like, the top 3 people I work for don't even know how to answer their email, how do you bridge that gap of making people from the projects come up off that block and embrace meditation and that other, like, I know that it's like, oh yeah, it's cool, we get to choke people, but I feel like there's something in between, other than the fact that you're one of the kids that had the opportunity that got out and went back, so you can relate. Like, do you always need a you to make that program work? Like,
I don't think you always need a me. I do think that they were a lot more receptive to me, because I could relate, you know. And part of it is, it's the onus is on us to get the right people within the program, to get real humans, um, not robots. Like, because it's not a job for, as you know, Nico, like, it's not a job for just teachers per se, and it's also not a job for just ninjas. You know, like, you
we
need.
talked to somebody from Miami. I was like, you were sneaking kids out of school to take them to the gym. Like, nobody knew you were doing that. He's like, yeah, no, that's how it
Yeah,
is. You do it for love because you know it will help,
absolutely. And
but
so, like,
also that you will be charged if their parents so decide.
yeah, exactly. You know? Like, run the check, you know. But it's a blend of us being cognizant of personalities, getting a good evaluation on the people that we want in the program, not just bringing anybody in, because with these programs, you know, you can do this, but you have a bunch of kids that you're dealing with that aren't used to any level of consistency in their life. And that's why, you know, they'll get destructive or go off on different tangents. So you need somebody that, you know, is in it, that's passionate about it, that's not going to, like, you know, switch up and bounce out, because you don't want a rotating door, because they're not receptive to that. You know, hurt my heart. The first few months I was there, you know, they were loving me. And then I started getting these questions like, hey, how long are you going to be here? Are you going to be here for the next semester? Please come back. Please come back. And it's hurting my heart, because I'm like, these kids aren't saying this from a teacher perspective. They're saying it because they've dealt with it with their parents. They've dealt with it with extended family. They're dealing with it with friends, you know? And so from that perspective, I was just like, I'm not going anywhere. You guys got me. You guys got me. You need this consistency. You know, we have a system catered towards breaking up that consistency for us, you know? And so it's on us to, you know, continue to impart that. And so, yeah, a lot of it is on us hiring folks that are proper, that are, you know, have the proper mindset. But as far as like marketing to schools goes, we have to let them know, like, hey, we want to make sure that these are our goals for you as a school. Like I said, the truancy levels, the grades, and all that kind of stuff, because that's how your school gets your money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you guys don't get money if there's not that many kids in your classes.
Yep.
You know, and so, you know, it's the trickle down effect. So we're going to teach them these things on how to be a better person. As far as the kids themselves go, being real upfront with the kids. That's also another piece of that consistency that they often lack. You know, having people lie to them or just not follow through regardless of the intention. So making sure you follow through. I'm like, if I told you I was going to give you guys all candy or all stickers at the end of class, if you guys did whatever you had to do, you better have your candy and your stickers on deck, you know, because even if their world isn't consistent, kids don't lie to you. So they're consistent,
Yeah.
you know? And so if you break that trust, they're not going with you. So staying real with the kids. I kind of didn't initially, I kind of have a different approach, because I don't initially just go with like, hey guys, okay, so we're going to do this hour-long class of jiu-jitsu, and then we're going to turn around and talk about breathing and how you feel. I give them the jiu-jitsu first. Let them, you know, express their energy. Let them express their aggression, their feelings. And then I start incorporating it on the back end. And I'm like, you're frustrated. Why are you frustrated? Oh, because you keep losing? Well, why do you keep losing? Okay, part of this is your skill. This is a lack of technique. Cool, you're not supposed to know anything. You know, every kid, as soon as they start, I want to spar. I'm like, you know what's better than sparring? Sparring when you actually know the moves. So, you know?
Way more fun that way.
Yeah, right. For real. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm gonna teach you the jiu-jitsu. But here's the thing. You're still gonna lose because you're not gonna be perfect at this on your first try. You know? And then I put in perspective, like, how long have I been training? Boom. I've been training longer than you've been alive. So that, and I still don't win every single time. You know? So I'm like, okay, now that you have a dose of perspective, a proper gauge, now we can get somewhere. And I'm like, you know what else is hurting you? You're not controlling your breathing while you're rolling. So they're still getting the meditation, even though I don't label it as meditation.
Yeah.
You know, you don't, like, the kids hate the L word. They want to play. They don't want to learn. So you have to teach them in a way that, you know, appeases them. So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, if you don't want to do this breathing exercise and you're going to make fun of it, then I'm just going to put you in a little jiu-jitsu Shark Tank. And while your breathing is going crazy, I'm going to teach you how to calm down. And now you're going to calm your breathing. So now if you can do it in this environment where people are literally trying to rip your head off, man, when you have that test next week, oh, this is nothing. Okay, what did I learn? You know, and so that's how I'm incorporating the breathing. That's how I'm incorporating their self-awareness. That's how I'm incorporating their mindfulness. So I just took it from a position that they're used to. They're used to the physical, you know, getting spanked as kids, using that as like their enforcement, you know. Any of the
kinesthetic learners, like there are 8 different learning types, and you know, verbal is not the most prominent by far.
No, absolutely. Like I'm the last one that's going to be like just telling them, hey, this is what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
However, they learn that Dom likes to have fun. Dom jokes with all the kids. I'm the first one walking up in there making fun of kids and having a good time with them. So when I start getting stern or letting them know, you know, it's like the fire and ice thing. When I've been cool as a cucumber this whole time and all of a sudden I start barking, they know it's time to listen. So now I can impart the verbal instead of just, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do today. I'm not a robot. You know, I wasn't built for that. And these kids aren't built for that. They're brilliant, you know? And so then, yeah, that just falls back into employing the right people. You know, I've told folks, I'm like, it's not about you guys all becoming jiu-jitsu champions and doing all this stuff. It's about you just finding whatever your passion is and rocking until the wheels fall off. You know, having these kids in the inner cities that love, you know, I have one kid that was into the piano, one kid that was into violin, and these kids come to me crying when they have to quit. And one of the kids, he was like, yeah, I'm going to UCLA. Like, I'm in a program through UCLA. He's a middle school kid. Program where basically if I just keep working at this, and maintain a certain GPA, because he's a savant, maintain a certain GPA, he's got to ride to UCLA to play the piano. And he's bawling his eyes out that he can't do jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, nah, bro, that is your jiu-jitsu. Do that. Drive that home. Another kid, you know, I saw him drawing on his homework, and homie was nice. He can draw. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do eventually? Like, and I started just picking his brain on it, because he started hiding his math homework, thinking that I was going to like chastise him for it. And I'm like, well, show me what you're drawing. And when I see it, I'm like, hey, well, what do you want to do endgame? Like, what do you want to go to college for? He's like, honestly, I want to end up working for Pixar. I want to do graphic design and all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, here's the deal. Keep those drawings. Do them on blank paper. these papers, fill these out with answers, because you need those grades in order to get into those schools. They want talent and hard work. So you have something that you're talented at that you want to work at, then do this work that you have to do now so that you can do the work that you want to do later. And so that's how I'm getting through to these people. And that's what we're trying to, you know, pass the buck to other people on, is if we get the right heads in there, we can help everybody.
That's amazing. And I think one thing that you really highlighted there is that the key to ending the cradle to prison pipeline will never be a program. It will always be a person. It will be that person that can reach out and give you that level of details about kids.
100%. Like, it's not all about, you know, like we can pass all the ordinances in the world and do all this stuff. I'm like, legal segregation's been dead for 55 years, but look at what we're talking about right now. So exactly. Obviously it only changes so much. So,
and you know, and that kind of transcends race. Like I was listening to Ryan from Project Grapple, and then somebody was like, "Is that a white dude? That is the blackest sounding white." He hadn't even seen him. I was like, "Yes, it is a white dude. He's with all these kids in Liberty City. They have adopted him. He is just one of them now." But yeah, he is. I was like, but so it transcends race when you just take that time to go and find a need that needs to be fulfilled and be that consistent person. It's not easy to be there for somebody. I have mentees, like, they're in their 26. I've known them like since they were in high school. It's been 8-9 years now, but like I got them in their senior year, like because I was a teacher at an at-risk school, but like they're my mentees forever. They're stuck with me.
That's it. You know, you gotta keep it consistent. I still am checking on all of my, you know, my students that went from the elementary schools to the middle schools, and the middle schools to the high schools, and COVID driving a stake in a lot of stuff. Like right now, David's been heavily involved in, basically he switched it up and was like, okay, we're going to do like a stand-up martial arts thing. So you guys can do katas online, but he's still keeping them honest. You got to show up. You still got to show up. Even if it's on Zoom, you still got to show up, you know? And it's just giving these kids that sense of accountability and responsibility. But if they're showing up, that means he's got to show up, you know? So
it's mutual.
Absolutely. It's all got to be reciprocated. So it's big. It's going to take people, even past any laws we can pass or anything that changes on that front. We need people to change. And this is what we're working on.
That's what's up, Dom. I really love to see that you're using your passion to push it forward, pay it forward. And, you know, I think a great point that you made was, although jiu-jitsu is your jiu-jitsu, like that young man or woman that was doing the art, it can be someone else's passion. But, you know, sometimes it takes doing something different to really find what you're passionate about and learn how to be the best version of yourself that you can. I know that helped me a lot. You know, I still do jiu-jitsu, but, you know, I come to realize that jiu-jitsu has to work for me and I don't work for jiu-jitsu. And that's fantastic, Dom. So before we wrap, is there anything you'd like to shout out? Anything you'd like to let all the other goons in the world know?
Oh, man. First and foremost, if your teacher's racist, change schools. Off top.
Do not fund that shit.
No. Yeah.
Bootleg their shit too.
Yeah, we need, you know what? Bet just because we were just talking about that, we're going to do that too. We're going to make a shirt that says defund racist jiu-jitsu instructors.
We can work on it. We can shorten it a little bit. Let's abbreviate it.
We'll make it work. We'll make it work. Defund racist jiu-jitsu, we'll figure it out. But either way, find a family, find a group of like-minded individuals that rock with you, that have your back, that support you. You, like, if you're feeling uncomfortable, speak up. If you don't feel comfortable enough to speak up, then that's probably not your environment. As far as everything else goes, anybody that hears this or anybody that's had access to me, if you're looking for a way to help the cause, hit me up. My Instagram handle is Dominat10n. Dominat10n, DOMINAT, the number 10, 10N. You can hit me up. I've got all kinds of resources for you, and just instruction on anything that you can do, suggestions on anything you can do in your local communities. Shout out to Dreamweaves, my gi sponsor. Huge shout out to them because they've been rocking with me through all of it. And where a lot of people are quiet about social injustice, or a lot of people have been quiet about the people around them, these dudes, they just continue to support and continue to tell me, as loud as you're speaking, speak louder. They've got my back. So much love, to everybody fighting the good fight. And yeah, shout out to my team. Shout out to you guys. Much appreciated, everybody. Like, this is the only way we're going to be doing this. It takes people, So thank you guys again. Huge thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dom. Nico?
That's what's up. I just want to say thank you again so much. I feel like this episode was you just coming on for me to ask you all the questions that I had about things that interest me the most, which just happens to be activism and, changing the world for the better place. But yeah, make sure to follow me at No New Nico. Check out Favela Jiu-Jitsu. FavelaJiujitsu.com is somewhat out of stock, but only because I'm working on coming back with some new fire. So you can stop by, get some t-shirts. Most of the hoodies are out, but we will be back next month. So stay tuned for that.
And as always, you can find me at Tim Spriggs BJJ on Instagram or Facebook. You can also go to timspriggsbjj.com to book a seminar, book a private lesson. Just holler at me wherever. The OnlyFans is coming out real soon. OnlyFans. Just pay at OnlyFans because
he down in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm in Savannah, but this has been the BJJ Goons podcast. Thanks for watching every week, folks. We'll be back next week. Peace.
Peace.